All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into a really powerful tool, one that's designed to bring a little bit of order to the chaos. It turns complex problems into a clear, visual map. Let's explore how the heck it works.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. A project goes completely off the rails, a process just breaks down, and suddenly you're facing this tangled mess of symptoms, opinions, and dead ends. It really feels like you're trying to find your way out of a maze with no map. But what if you could create that map?
And that is exactly what the Ishikawa diagram does. I love this quote because it just perfectly captures its power. It's a structured way to brainstorm every single potential cause, laying it all out visually so your team can finally move from confusion to clarity. So, let's get into what this visual map actually looks like.
Okay, so at its core, it's a visual brainstorming tool. You're going to hear it called a fishbone diagram, and that's because, well, it literally looks like the skeleton of a fish. You'll also hear it called a cause and effect diagram, which really gets to its function, to map the relationship between a problem, that's the effect, and all of its potential causes.
A great way to think about it is like a medical diagnosis. You know, a good doctor doesn't just hand you cough syrup for a cough. They systematically analyze all the symptoms to find the root cause. Is it an allergy, an infection? The Ishikawa diagram does the exact same thing for business problems. It forces a team to look past the obvious surface-level issues and really diagnose the underlying condition.
And this tool has some serious history. It was developed by Dr. Kaoru Ishikawa way back in the 1940s and became a key part of Japan's incredible post-war economic miracle. It was actually implemented at the Kawasaki shipyards and helped pioneer the quality management processes that made Japanese manufacturing the gold standard around the world.
So, how is this fish actually put together? Let's break down its anatomy.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts with the head of the fish. This is where you write down your problem statement, the effect. And you have to be crystal clear here. If you have a vague problem statement, you're going to get a vague and pretty useless diagram. Then, extending out from the problem, you have the spine. This is the main line, the central axis that connects that effect to all the broad categories of potential causes that we're about to brainstorm. And branching off that spine, you've got the main ribs. Think of these as the big buckets, the major categories that help organize your brainstorming session. This is where the real work of figuring things out begins.
And this table just lays it all out perfectly. You have the head defining the problem, the spine holding it all together, the primary branches for your main categories, and then the smaller secondary branches where you get into the nitty-gritty details your team comes up with. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful structure.
Okay, but how do you decide what those main categories, those big ribs, should be? Well, you don't just pull them out of thin air. There are actually established frameworks to guide your thinking.
And this is a really crucial point. The framework you pick totally depends on your industry. I mean, the reasons a car part is defective on an assembly line are going to be way different from the reasons for poor customer service in a call center, right? The beauty of the diagram is that it adapts to fit whatever context you're in.
So, the most famous framework is probably the 6 M's, which is perfect for manufacturing. It forces you to look at every angle, the people involved, or manpower, the equipment or machinery, the process itself, methods, the raw materials, the data you're using, measurement, and even the external conditions, Mother Nature. It's a great way to make sure nothing gets overlooked.
But this tool is incredibly versatile. For service industries, you might use the 4 S's, focusing on surroundings, suppliers, systems, and skills. Marketing teams often use the 8 P's to analyze why a campaign worked or didn't. And in today's tech world, software engineers have their own set of categories, like application code and infrastructure.
And get this is so cool. The diagram isn't just for fixing what's broken. It can be a tool for innovation. Mazda totally flipped the script and used a positive Ishikawa to design the iconic Miata. Instead of putting a problem in the head, they put a goal, and the bones became all the essential factors they needed to nail that legendary driving experience. Brilliant, right?
So let's take a look at how this powerful tool is actually being applied out in the wild today. In healthcare, the stakes are unbelievably high. So they use Ishikawa diagrams to investigate critical safety issues, like patient falls or medication errors. And the goal here isn't to blame a nurse or a doctor, it's to find and fix the systemic flaws in the processes or the systems that allowed the error to happen in the first place.
Now, over in software engineering, when a service goes down, teams do what's called a post-mortem to find the root cause. A fishbone diagram is perfect for this.
So for an issue like a slow checkout process, they can map out all the potential causes across the application code, the underlying infrastructure, or even flaws in their own monitoring systems.
And in logistics, a huge problem like late deliveries can be systematically broken down. Is it the method? Maybe some not optimized routes? Is it the machinery with trucks breaking down all the time? Or is it the measurement with totally inaccurate lead time estimates? The diagram helps pinpoint the exact bottleneck in a super complex supply chain.
Now, as powerful as this diagram is, and it really is, it's important to remember that it's just one tool in a larger problem-solving toolkit.
And this is the key thing to remember. The Ishikawa diagram is a hypothesis-generating machine. It gives you this fantastic, comprehensive list of potential causes. But what it doesn't do is tell you which cause is the most significant. For that, you got to bring in some other tools.
So here's how it all works in practice. First, you use the Ishikawa diagram to generate all your hypotheses, get everything out on the table. Next, for the most likely causes, you use a technique like the 5 whys to drill down and find the true root cause. And finally, you can use a Pareto chart, the 80-20 rule, to use actual data to identify which 20% of causes are creating 80% of the problems. And that's how you go from a map of ideas to a focused action plan.
Ultimately, the greatest strength of the Ishikawa diagram is its ability to transform a chaotic, messy, opinion-filled conversation into a single, clear, shared picture of reality. It gets everyone on the same page and points the way toward a real solution. So, the only question left is, what problem are you going to map first?